Hello, my name is Nora Agwu. I am a researcher. In recent time, I have been researching on tokenization. So today, I'm going to share with you what my discovery is and what I think the benefit of tokenization could be for Canada as a whole. So today, I'll be focusing on tokenizing community solar. Before then, I'd like to share a story. So imagine a grandma who lives in an apartment building and is passionate about cleaner energy and would love to participate in transiting into cleaner energy. But somehow, she's unable to afford the cost of installing solar panel because she lives in an apartment building. Because installing solar panel, it's quite expensive. Now, this leaves grandma and any other person who lives in that apartment building out of, that opportunity to transit into cleaner energy or participating in cleaner energy. And this got me thinking, how do we marry blockchain and with cleaner energy? And so I thought about how can someone like the grandma or someone who lives in a rented apartment, how can they benefit in this global transition? In the course of my research, I was able to discover, or rather, I'll ask this question: what if clean energy could put money back into people's pockets? That was the big question I asked myself. And that got me thinking, how do I marry these two? How do I marry our financial empowerment and cleaner energy? This brings me to my next slide. So given that Canada's global vision in terms of clean energy is to attain a net zero electricity by year 2050. That sounds great. But however, solar community adoption is about less than 2%, which is a challenge. And this is due to the fact that installing solar panels are quite expensive. It's about $10,000 or more. Then there are also policy issues that are a big challenge to allowing people within the community to participate in community solar adoption. According to statistics, 34% of Ontarians live in rented housing. This means that they are being excluded from this global mission. And this is what my research tends to explore. Now, what are the barriers? Based on my research, like I said, clean energy exists, but access is unequal. So imagine the grandma who lives in an apartment building. Imagine a student. Imagine your average Ontarian who live in an apartment building or who cannot even afford to to install solar panel in their houses. They are unable to access cleaner energy. Community solar adoption is minimal, like I have said. Unlike in Europe, where there are legal clarity and there are policy support backing them. So without these reforms, we risk entrenching, energy exclusion. Now, this brings us to tokenization. Blockchain allows tokenization to function. So through blockchain, we're able to share and trade your tokens. It means that everyone within that platform will be able to trade their tokens. Basically, it encourages peer-to-peer exchange. So tokenization is equal to fractional ownership plus peer-to-peer trading, and everyone within the community tends to benefit from it. Now, what can your $50 do? That $50 that you have invested into solar community projects, what can it do for you? You can own a slice of the solar. You don't necessarily have to have $10,000 to own or install a solar panel. With your $50, with the $100 that you have, you can own a slice. That's ownership. It gives you that sense of belonging within the community. It also lowers your bill. Now, the ROI on it is actually very interesting. So when I move to the next slide, you get to understand what I'm talking about. So with that, for those of them who want to have the credits, you can use that to lower your bill. Then it also builds local wealth. That investment that you have invested into the solar energy, the return on investment can be used to help to build your community. So this is how tokenization enhances cleaner energy. Now, let's look at the tokenized energy markets. According to statistics, specifically from Business Insights, in the year 2024, tokenization of energy tokens generated about 3.1 billion. That is huge for a new initiative. And global market is projected by 2024 for 12.83 billion. That is a lot of financial potential that I don't think Canada should sleep on. So Ontario risks as being excluded if we do not have the right reforms, if we do not start the right conversation towards energy tokens. So with energy tokens, people can participate in the transition for Canada. That's the global goal for cleaner energy. You can also empower people within your community financially. So like it doesn't just, how do I put that? Okay, so if Ontario does not act now, we risk being locked out, not just socially, but also financially. Like I have said, there is a great potential. By 2024, we're looking at 12.83 billion. That's a lot of potential. I don't think that people in Ontario would want to lose out from. It will help us build our community. It will help us, enrich and enhance financial inclusion as well. So my research approach, I started the research, I carried out a comparative analysis looking at Ontario as my major case study. I didn't want to delve into Canada as a whole because it's a conversation that is just, emerging. So I looked at Ontario and I compared it against some countries in Europe, Germany, France, and Netherlands. Now, Asia is way ahead, so it was not a very good, region for comparison. But then again, I will still talk more about the progress that has been made in Asia. So I looked up at 35 policy documents between the period of 2018 and 2025. Now, this brings me to some of my challenges in the course of this research. I was unable to get research, especially on energy tokens. It was pretty difficult getting research documents and policy documents. And this is because we do not have a lot of researchers and, scientists, not scientists, a lot of researchers, researching in this area. So I used the thematic coding across 6 dimensions. I looked at the regulatory clarity. I looked at consumer protection, technology infrastructure. I looked at investment climate. I looked at governance and equity. So those were my basis for coming up with my findings, which we will see in the next slide. But before then, I also want to give you a picture of the global view. So I want to start with Northern America, New York to be precise. There in New York, there was a neighborhood that started a project on community solar. And the numbers are there. They have made a lot of progress just testing it within that community. It's called the Brooklyn Microgrid. That has produced a lot of progress in that community, and people are being empowered financially. I also looked at Europe, where the government, or rather, there's a standing policy in Europe that allows countries in the European Union to participate and to test blockchain and energy token, which is why this is thriving in that region. Now, Asia, like I said, is leading in blockchain energy. Quite a number of countries in Asia, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, are already practicing tokenization. For example, in Tokyo, in South Korea, they have the peer-to-peer energy trading through the national utility, where people get incentives just by, keying in and participating in energy tokens. In Singapore, it's the same. In Japan, consumers are being rewarded with tokens when they participate in decentralized energy platforms. So this has actually helped them, especially in this area, it has helped tokenization of energy tokens to thrive in Asia. Now, what is the common thread that these regions all have together? The common thread they all have together is that they have thriving policies. They have policy support from the governments. They have the government backing. Like I said, in Europe, there is a standing policy that allows countries in Europe to explore tokenization, especially in energy tokens. Now, what are the benefits? The benefits are high. There's access. Everyone can access it. Everyone who belongs to a particular community can access it. There's transparency. However, we should also be careful. Note that blockchain also comes with its own cyber insecurity if one is not careful. But then that's why we have policies. Where you have policies, innovations will thrive. Now, with the right policies, tokenization can increase access, it can lower costs, and give people real ownership in the energy transition that we all are talking about in recent times. Now, what are the global lessons? From my research, I picked up 3 countries, Germany, France, and Netherlands. It's just to give you a glimpse of how they are progressing. In Germany, they have a strong renewable energy community law and communities ownership. There are cooperatives that are being set up in different communities to allow them to participate in energy token. And at the end of the year, incentives are being given to them for participating in this project. In France, they already have policy sandbox projects that allow them to test drive under strict regulations by the government, just to ensure that they are monitoring and adopting policies. They keep updating their policies to ensure that consumers are protected, investors are also protected, and the climate as well is protected. Now in Netherlands as well, they also encourage peer-to-peer energy trading. So these models shows that with government support, innovations can thrive. With policies, innovation can thrive. Now, what is the gap in Ontario? Based on my research, I came to a conclusion that one of the major challenges we have is that we do not have legal definitions for energy tokens. Now, if you look at the Security Energy Commission, because I went through quite a number of their policies, there are policy definitions on what cryptocurrency entails, what blockchains entails. There are definitions on each of these categories, but there are actually no clear definitions on energy tokens. There have been committees that have been set up to talk about this, but they haven't gotten, that much traction that they deserve. So this is something that this is a major challenge for Ontario. Now, there are no sandbox testing already, test beds, where we can test to see, if Ontario is able to adopt tokenization of energy, how would it impact the people? What are the benefits? We do not have those testing, which is something that countries like France are already exploring. So there are weak investment, climate, and limited pilot projects. So these are some of the challenges that Ontario, based on my research, experienced this far. So my key findings. So in Ontario, as you can see in the heat map, across the 6 regulatory dimensions that I explored, Ontario falls between low to medium in terms of readiness, in terms of policy readiness in embracing energy tokenization. Germany, you can see, is way ahead. I mean, they have policies set up already and they're already exploring. France and Netherlands are also doing very well in terms of adopting energy and tokenization to help us, move into that global transition, which is one of Canada's greatest, goal for the year 2050. What are the recommendations from my policy, from my research? My research is recommending that with the right policies, defining what energy tokens should be would help us, begin this conversation. When we have policies and people at the top talking about tokenization, coming up with the right policies, coming up with the right reforms, allowing people, researchers, to go into benefits and to go into exploring what the benefits of energy tokenizations are. We all can benefit from these initiative. Now, another recommendation is to launch pilot projects and policy sandboxes in most of our communities. I would start with Guelph. Guelph is an industrial city where you have lots of companies. If Ontario can start up sandboxes, testing beds, where we can go there with strict regulation, obviously, with under monitoring, to test to see what the impact of energy tokenization can bring to Canada as a whole. Also, strengthening consumer protection. Like I had mentioned, there are risks that are involved. So for you to protect your customers and protect your consumers, there should be consumer protection policies that will also encourage consumers, and then also provide things like investment incentives for people within the community. With this, I believe if Ontario is able to adopt this, also encouraging models that encourage ownership for people within the community. I mean, tokenization of energy, can thrive and help Canada achieve its global vision. Now, now clean energy can power local economies. What are the community opportunities? What are the opportunities that are there? When communities are empowered, the benefits are high. When people are given the opportunity to own a share, to own something that you know you own, people are empowered. Communities, local investments will circulate back into the system. Assuming I invest, for the grandma who invests her $50 into energy tokens, looking at the projection for 2034, in the next 5 to 6 years, you expect her return of investment to be way more than what she had invested. That investment will be returned back into the community. This is basically for our community, just to develop our community. Will be returned back into the community, back into building good schools, building roads, supporting, community developments. Those are some of the advantages. Clean energy doesn't just reduce carbon, it also builds resilience and builds financial inclusion for everyone within the community. Now, what is my call for action? So my call for action is energy for all, wealth for all. Ontario has the opportunity to meet its climate goals, but it also do ensure that the benefits of clean energy are shared amongst everyone. This is my call. I'm also calling out to researchers out there to delve into energy token. People need to explore, go out there and see what is happening. There are a lot happening in Asia. They are advancing, in a very they're advancing greatly, they're advancing greatly. So if we have more researchers exploring energy tokens, I think the benefits would will fall down to people within the community. And finally, my final quote is that the energy transition isn't only about cleaner power. It's also about getting to share in that future. The grandma can share in that future. The student who lives in a rented apartment can share in that future. I can share in that future. Everyone can have access to this clean energy, and not just those who live in bigger houses who have $10,000 or more to install it. Everyone within a particular community can share in this initiative. Thank you.